This is Chapter 11, Section 3, Checked and Unchecked Exceptions. So checked and unchecked exceptions. Unchecked exceptions extend the class runtime exception or the class error. These are your fault as a programmer, and you need to fix them. You don't need to create an exception handler to handle an exception that you shouldn't allow to happen anyway. For instance, a null pointer exception is an unchecked exception. These are a runtime exception. You shouldn't allow your program to ever have a null pointer. You should not be using null pointers. You need to check and handle that that's not going to happen. That is something you can handle, and you should take care of it. Checked exceptions are external circumstances that the programmer cannot prevent, and the compiler is going to force you to take care of those. That would be something like an input-output exception, bad file, user enters the wrong file name, or you're trying to save to a network and then the server's down, something that isn't a programming mistake, but you know that your program works fine, but circumstances beyond your control are preventing your program from operating correctly. Those are checked exceptions, and those are ones that you need to take care of. So to handle a checked exception, you're going to add a throw specifier to a method. So if I add public void read, this method's reading some file as an image with a string of the file name. I will then say throws file not found exception. Alright. That says this method will check this exception, and the method will die unless I tell it how to handle it. Or I can also do multiples. If this is going to throw more than one exception, I can do this, comma, this, kind of like an interface where I have more than one. I just have to separate them by a comma. Now this is a superclass of file not found. So I want to throw a file not found exception. I could just throw an IO exception instead and be okay. In addition, I can also throw an exception, or say that a method is going to throw an exception that does not necessarily have to be. I could do a checked exception. For instance, I could have read throw a file not found exception, which is a checked exception. It has to be thrown. And I could also have it do something. For instance, I could have it then throw a no such element exception, which is a runtime or unchecked exception. And I don't have to do it, but for documentation, maybe I want it to throw that so that anybody running the program that's not me will understand, okay, there's a mistake here. That element doesn't exist, and while it will die, it'll allow you to then go back and maybe fix the program, or your part of your program that's using that method.